Alright guys, welcome to the channel. This is Red Tactics, and today I'm going over my settings for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is going to include my difficulty settings, some of my skills, maybe some of my character customization a little bit with some of the weapons I like to rock, but mostly we're going to be going over game settings, difficulty, a little bit of image settings, and a couple of other things that I feel like I need to mention. Okay, and also this video was a request from I'm Him. So yeah, if you guys have any other requests for anything else you'd like to see, be sure to comment down below. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Alright, so first thing we're diving into is the Ghost Parameters experience. I have gear level off, which I think is the best way to play this game. I've tried playing with the gear level on a bit. Not a big fan of it personally, though I know there are a lot of people who enjoy the game like that. Enemy difficulty is on extreme, of course, and then my tactical difficulty in my interface is in separate settings here, which I will show. Let me go to the settings here. So first off, I do have main weapon slots, 2 available. Most of the time I only run one weapon at a time because I do think it looks overkill to have 2 weapons, but I like being able to carry a second weapon sometimes for fun, so that's there. Bandage quality I have on unlimited, which you might think that, oh, well, you can just heal indefinitely. It's like, yes, but it just seems kind of ridiculous in this game to pay for the bandages, which cost 25 or it might even be 50 credits each, or skill credits. And that's just a lot of skill credits to be wasting all the time just because you're using bandages. So I just think it's not worth it, especially when you get into critical injury condition anyways. You can barely move, and if you're playing solo, that's enough of a challenge right there when you have 3 wounds and there's all these guys around. Especially if they throw a grenade or something, you basically can't escape. So I don't really see unlimited bandages as like a huge crutch, at least when you're playing solo. When you have teammates and they can revive you and stuff too, you might want to set bandage quality to, you know, a few or something like that. But overall, I don't think it's worth the waste of skill credits on bandages. I have syringes healing injuries on. Now that is something that is a little easier, that makes things a little easier, but the main reason why I have that is because I just don't always like the looks of the bandages on you all the time. So if you heal yourself with the syringe, then it gets rid of any bandages you have on you. And it's also just a nice alternative. I think it's fine to have that on. Besides, if you get to critical injury level condition, you end up having to use a bandage anyway, so you can't use it all the time. Risk of injury I have on always, just to make it as difficult as possible, so this way you don't want to get shot. Because with this, it's like every time I get shot, I have to suffer the injury every single time. So that's a nice level of difficulty, which is why I also have the syringes heal injuries on, because every time I get shot, I'm injured. So it gets a bit tedious when you're having to always use bandages all the freaking time. So that's why I have the syringes healing injuries and the risk of injury on always. Though, if you don't want your syringes to heal injuries, then I would recommend doing risk of injury to often. So this way you're not having to use the bandages so often. Because if you have risk of injury on always and have syringe heal injuries off, then you're just gonna be using bandages all the time. It'll just be annoying. It just makes for poor gameplay, honestly. Stamina consumption I have an extreme. Yeah, this you could have on none if you really wanted to. I don't really think that matters, but it's nice to have that layer of difficulty that my character can't just sprint away forever. I think it forces you to deal with the situation you've created at hand a lot more. Health regeneration I have on partial. Let me go over that. So maximize means that that's gonna literally heal anything that happens to you except for injuries, and it'll heal you up fully minus your injuries. So if you had 1 injury, that would take away 1 bar of health. You had 2 injuries, to take away 2 bars of health, but it'll heal the whole thing. Partial is only going to heal up part of your bar, and then original is just standard, where it's going to heal up a little over half. I just have it on partial, so then this way when I get to critical injury levels, I don't have that gray screen with all the blood on it for too long, because it can just make it really hard to see until you heal yourself. So I have it on partial pretty much just for that reason. It doesn't really affect the difficulty, because even on partial, because I have injuries on always, if I'm at critical injury levels and I get shot one more time, then I'm still gonna die anyways, even though I had health regen on partial. So it really doesn't make a difference with the way I have the settings on. So that's why I have that on partial. Ammo loss on reload, I would recommend having this off. It might seem like it's cool to count your bullets, because that is what you would have to do in real life. But in real life, you'd be able to potentially save your magazine. And in this game, you can't save the mag to use the bullets later with like half a mag. You can't do that, so you end up just losing the bullets and throwing the mag away, which I think is kind of dumb. So I think it's less realistic having that on, actually, because in real life you actually could save those bullets and magazines. And then Darkest Night, you definitely want this on, because when it's off, it's gonna allow you to get spotted more easily at night by other enemies when you have this on. Even though it does make the screen darker and everything, it will make it harder for you to get detected by enemies, as it says here. And then it also makes night vision goggles just more useful and more necessary in the game, which makes it more realistic and cooler. Now, as for other things, teammate special abilities, I would say a lot of people tend to have that off. I have it on because I think it's cool when Fury uses the Echelon ability, so this way you can see where all the enemies are at. It kind of gives you a nice advantage if you are working with your teammates, but you know, if it seems like it's too overpowered for you, you can definitely turn that off, but I think it's fun, and it is a game after all. Anyways, interface, moving on to that, subtitles I have on, not that that stuff really matters, but pretty much for all my HUD, I have it all completely off except for objectives. Mission reminders, I can turn off with tab, turn off and on. I do play on PC with this game. Detection gauge I have off and everything. Loot markers I also have off because they highlight and glow anyways. You don't really need the little thing hovering above it anyways. But you know, if you're new to the game, you might want things like that on. So just depends on how used to the game you are. If you're really used to this game and you know the game well, definitely recommend turning everything off for full immersion to really immerse yourself in what this game was really supposed to be. And minimap off, of course. And then teammates, I sometimes turn that on if I'm playing with friends, just so I know where they are, if they need to be healed or something, and they get downed. But generally, I like to have teammates tags off. Now, I do have sync shots on. You can turn this off if you want it to be a little bit more immersive. Your AI teammates will let you know when they have the shot acquired. But if you change Fury's gender, then she doesn't talk, so then you have no idea if they have the enemy down or not. So I recommend just having this one on. But you know, a lot of people have this off. It's just up to you. That's just what I have. And then I have all the input reminders off too. But again, if you're newer to the game, you probably want this on so you know which button to press to open up or interact with it. So that's pretty much it when it comes to my settings. Default is over the shoulder for aiming. Camera distance I like it close. I don't like it far or at dynamic. I don't like it when it's zooming in and out all the time, but you might. It's up to you. One thing I want to move over to are the video settings. And not for the graphics, though I do have pretty much everything maxed out, minus like a setting or two. But the main thing I want to talk about is the image calibration. When you scroll down here, you'll see that right here. Image calibration. Now, this is something that's going to really depend on your monitor, but this heavily affects your gameplay and how everything is. I have things on a little bit of the brighter side for YouTube, but I know a lot of people don't rock these settings, but I think they look better, at least with my monitor for my recording purposes. I have the gamma all the way at 100, so whites that are white are like bright, like things that are like actually bright are really bright, and things that are dark are really dark. So gamma just affects the difference between how much of a difference there is between light and dark areas, and then contrast. The contrast just increases the contrast even more so than gamma for the difference in light and dark. So they both kind of do the same thing, just a little bit differently. And then brightness I have at 60, which is a little bit brighter. Honestly, you want this skull to probably be less noticeable, so ideally for my screen it'd be better if it was at like 53, but then you guys won't be able to see what's going on, so I have it at 60 so you guys can actually see what's happening. But I recommend these settings because it makes the nights actually really dark, and it makes, you know, certain bright areas, like in the mountain areas where it's all snowy with all that bright snow, it makes the snow much more reflective, much brighter. It makes it harder to see in those environments, so it just adds more challenge. So that's definitely what I recommend. Now I'm going to talk about the skills that I use. You definitely want to make sure you got your skill tree all maxed out. If you have, if you're newer to the game, you definitely want to make sure you have every single one of these skills. Now for classes, I typically rock either Echelon or Pathfinder. I think those are, without a doubt, the two best classes in the game. Though, some other people will say that some of the other classes are useful, which they are. Like Sharpshooter is really useful if you're using a DMR or a sniper and you want to take down behemoths a little bit more easily. That'll definitely allow you to do that, as you can see in that little video right there. Even though that's not a behemoth, that's just a drone tank car thing, but it has its uses. Panther definitely also has its uses too. You get swift steps, which you move faster just when you're crouched, or just in general, you're moving faster, which is very useful. And silencers don't reduce the damage, which is also nice, and you get the bonus stealth from shadows. But I barely use this class. I don't have all my classes ranked up, by the way. I find it very time consuming to do that in this game. But Echelon's probably the class I've used the most, and Pathfinder, because you do get the stealth bonus, you get the higher damage with handguns, which is really useful, and the reflex shot, which is also really useful. So if you have a pistol equipped, and all of a sudden someone spots you, you'll hear this little sound effect, and then if you just hit the aim on either left trigger on a controller or right click on a mouse, it will automatically aim at the enemy, and you can just pull the trigger and shoot at him. And that's good for up to 150 meters, so that's pretty OP. And then the other thing you get is, some people might not like this, but yeah, you can see through the walls using the special ability to activate the technique, which is incredibly useful in a ton of situations. Especially if you're going solo more of the time, this can be good because it can let you see where the enemies generally are before you decide to attack. So this way, you don't get spotted easily off the bat. So that's super useful for stealth. Pathfinder, this class is also fantastic. You can also, for the technique, you can basically call a drone above, and you can start blowing up a place without them even knowing where it's coming from, and you can really minimize the amount of enemies before you even enter the place, so that can be incredibly useful. But the better thing that's more useful for is scout vision. Being able to activate that hot thermal vision is incredibly useful for when you're looking for enemies, and you can use that constantly. There's no cooldown for that, so the white hot thermal vision is just awesome. But you don't get any of the stealth bonuses or anything, but you do get tactical caches, which give you credits, and weapon parts and other things which are useful. You can find those literally everywhere. Then you do get this stupid perk, which is you get better ration effects if you use rations in the game. I think pretty much everyone doesn't use any rations in the game. But now, real quick, weapon mastery, that's definitely something you're going to want to have upgraded. I'm still working on that. I don't have all that done quite yet, but definitely something you want to make sure you get all upgraded at some point. All right, and lastly, we're gonna go into perks. Now, perks, I really think that they're just, I would say 4 perks that are the most useful. So we're gonna go into it. First one is Ballistics Advantage. This gives you 60 range and 30 handling on every single gun that you use. That is just incredibly useful straight away, especially in comparison to a lot of the other perks. The next one is the Pistol Arrow, which is great, especially if you're using the Echelon class already. Now you're getting not just damage bonus from the Echelon class with the pistol, but now you're also getting it with this perk too, which makes pistols just really good to use, actually, if you have that plus the Echelon class. Definitely recommend that, and you get XP bonuses. And then third, we got the Close and Personal. I definitely recommend that this is a must-have. You definitely need to use this. As for the Pistol Arrow, you could possibly sacrifice that one. But Close and Personal is an absolute necessity. It allows you to do much better reloading, and much faster reloading, and I'll show you that here. Alright, so instead of taking out the mag and putting it in your pouch and then equipping a new one, you reload a lot more like John Wick. So you flick the mag out, and then you reload a new one. Same thing usually goes for the pistols, not every pistol though, but I think this one will. Yep, flicked out, reload, done. Ready to go, ready to get right back in the action. Reload, boom, still firing. incredibly useful. Definitely recommend that perk. And then the last perk I'm going to go over that's also incredibly useful is Feel No Pain. So if you are sick of the critical injury conditions where your character can barely move and then a grenade gets thrown at you, and you're sick of dealing with that all the time, then definitely equip this perk, because this, you cannot reach the critical injury levels and gives you 50% injury resistance. So you're actually not, even if you have the injuries on always, that won't happen actually as much if you have this perk. So injuries won't happen actually always with this perk, even if you have always selected, because you have the 50% injury resistance. And that's pretty much about it. And another perk I forgot to mention was actually the Slim Shadow perk, which gives you plus 80 stealth and plus 10 agility, which is going to increase your movement speed when you're crouching or whatever. And also that plus 80 stealth is incredibly useful. So that's actually another perk I tend to rock. I kind of switch between these 5 perks that I have, but I'm only ever using those 5. I would say the one I use the least is the Feel No Pain, but the pistol arrow is definitely a good one. But I would actually recommend using these 3 perks combined. If anything, these are probably the best 3, I would say, unless if you want the Feel No Pain if you're sick of the critical injury levels. But yeah, I would say if you really want to have the best advantage in this game with stealth, range, everything, I'd recommend Slim Shadow, Ballistics Advantage, and Close and Personal for the best perks in the game. Those would be my top 3. Alrighty, that's going to do it for me. This is Red Tactics, and I'll catch you in the next one.